Hi everybody, this is Jim from Zone Tripping, and I wanted to dedicate this video to talking about the Beatles Get Back documentary by Peter Jackson, why you need to watch it. So you'll get a little bit of some history lesson here, but a reaction and a quick review of the documentary. On Thanksgiving weekend this year, 2021, Disney Plus released an 8-hour, 3-part epic documentary about the Beatles' January 1969 Get Back sessions. The film was directed by Peter Jackson of Lord of the Rings fame. And the original project in 1969 was intended to be a combination package. There was going to be a TV special about the band developing songs and rehearsing for a live show that would be performed at some exotic location like Tripoli, and then there would be an album as a follow-up. And the original footage was shot at Twickenham Film Studios before moving to the basement of Apple Records in Savile Row, London. Now, from the get-go, the project was dysfunctional. Too many cooks in the kitchen. They had clueless, shifting plans, lots of infighting and tension in Twickenham. And this led George Harrison to actually quit the band for several days until he could be coaxed back under new terms. When they went to Apple Records, the band's mood improved, and they pushed through, and this culminated in the famous Rooftop Concert at the end of January 1969. This would be their final live performance as a band. And then in April of 69, they released a single, the Get Back single, and then I'm going to go in another video. I'm going to talk maybe next time about the checkered history of the actual Let It Be album. So this all turned into Let It Be eventually. But just to sort of focus on this one on the video, you've got a feature film of Let It Be was released in 1970. So the project in January 69, it was very fraught and sort of unstable, but they did eke out that Rooftop Concert, and they issued Get Back as a single, and with Don't Let Me Down as the B-side. And then the project was shelved, in effect. But then later in 1970, Michael Lindsay Hogg, who is the director of the project, and he appears prominently in the new documentary, usually with a cigar in his mouth. He in his edit for the film in 1970, he focused on the acrimony within the band. And the fact that the release of this film coincided with the demise of the Beatles. They quit being the Beatles in 1970. I think it was seen as this sad chronicle of their disintegration. The film had a limited run, and then it briefly came out on home video in 1981, and then sort of quickly disappeared. And bootleg copies did appear on VHS and DVD if you looked hard enough. But the film, the old Let It Be film, hasn't been in distribution at all. So this long and winding road gets us back to Peter Jackson and this documentary, which is a supersized documentary. He took 60 hours of raw film footage and 150 hours of audio, and he edited it. He boiled it down masterfully to an 8-hour, 3-part documentary. It seems like a lot, 8 hours, but not if you're a big Beatles fan. So let me just cut to the chase here, and you can stop the video now if you feel like it. Get Back is essential viewing for Beatles fans. Full stop. Seriously, you can just stop watching this video right now and go over to Disney Plus and begin watching the video and feast yourself on it. We watched it over Thanksgiving weekend. Every day they released a new part, and it was riveting. So what Peter Jackson did was he took this morass of footage and he found the storyline in it. He gave it a kind of 3-act structure. Act 1 is about the chaotic, abortive, acrimonious Twickenham studio sessions. And the Beatles are disengaged, they're listless, they're grumpy, they're unsure of themselves. And that madness peaks with George walking off the set. And there's a cliffhanger ending at the end of part one. Will George return to the group? You have to stay tuned for part two. But part one, as a viewing experience, I think is the toughest slog. The scenes, as you watch them, as they unfold, they're uncomfortable. There's so much tedium and tension in the air. It's really painful watching Paul attempting to boss around his bandmates. He's not good at it. He's kind of passive-aggressive. And I will say, to Paul's credit, he's really the only band member who seemed to care. He brought some great song ideas to the table, but the others are disaffected. John seems out of touch and kind of bemused. Maybe it's the drugs he was doing at the time. And this is sort of John's state of mind until the end of part one, when unexpectedly the sparks begin to go off between John and Paul. Like, they really seem to start connecting musically, and they're having a lot of fun, and they're making eye contact, and there's all this sort of synergy and energy between them. And you can just see visually what made these two such a great songwriting team, the way they feed off of each other. It's pretty exciting to watch. And that continues in the other parts too. But the unfortunate byproduct of this is they ignore Ringo, and especially George. And George, who's been bringing some musical ideas, he's been sneered at, passed over, just ignored. And then he had enough of it. So you see towards the end of part one this dramatic sequence of George, his reaction shots. It's like quick cuts. And you can see all this adding up, and then that motivates his exit. And then this is followed by just an utterly fascinating sequence where the remaining band members, plus Yoko Ono, who's always at John's side, they participate in this riotous jam session. And it's just musical chaos, feedback, roaring. Yoko's doing her thing on vocals. And you can almost see the music here reflecting the tragic downfall that's happening around this group. So when you finish part one, as a viewer, you're feeling utterly depressed. Like, are there going to be two more parts of this? You feel a little dirty inside, like you're rubbernecking at an accident scene. And then so begins part two. And the high drama continues. George is out. He has not been persuaded to come back to the group yet. But the project moves on. And then all you have there at Twickenham are Paul and Ringo sitting there just devastated. They're hoping John might appear. They're not sure about it. Maybe he's going to quit too. You can just feel the collapse of the group happening in real time. And it's all being captured on camera in a very uncomfortable way. And Paul and Ringo even get misty-eyed. I mean, you can see Paul tearing up. And this awkward tension is really thick in the air. And then I think it's road manager Mal Evans cuts through that bleak silence, and he suggests that maybe Paul should call John. And Paul pops right out of his seat to do just that. And then we cut to the breaking news that John is indeed on the way in, and hope springs eternal. So maybe they'll be able to work their way through this. And then there's this priceless audio capture where the directors of the original film planted a hidden mic, and you get to hear John and Paul's private conversation without the glare of the lights and cameras. And we're bearing witness to this intense existential heart-to-heart exchange as they confront the mess that they're in, and they're seeking a way to get George back in the fold. And then they schedule another meeting with George, and this is all off camera, and he then agrees to return under some new terms. He wants them to scrap the Twickenham studio sessions and establish a more intimate studio setup in the basement of the Apple Records building. And then we are moving in a way dramatically from nightfall to dawn. And this is where I think the original Let It Be film, what they left out of the story, because that film just kind of leaves you feeling pretty bleak. But here, a happier version of the band emerges in Peter Jackson's rendition of the story. And two key characters, as I'm watching the film, facilitated this revival. One was producer George Martin, who was kind of lurking off and on in Twickenham, but you could tell he was just really disturbed at what he was seeing, and he seemed like he just wanted out of it. But in the Apple sessions, he's there, and he's being supportive, he's cajoling, he's facilitating, and he's even playing like Big Brother advisor to producer engineer Glenn Johns, who was really running the show, but at times appears out of his head. And then the second key character is Billy Preston. And Billy appears like a deus ex machina. He just comes in at the right moment, at the right time, and the lads invite him to sit in. He starts playing the keyboard, and the results are instantly positive. You can feel a lift in the music, in the mood, and the spirit of the band. They're all trying harder and sounding better with Billy Preston around, and he stays with them through the remainder of the sessions. And he's also in the Rooftop Concert. So in part 2 of the documentary, the song ideas, you start to see these germs that started in part 1 begin to take shape as they keep kind of cycling through them again and again. And John Lennon is like a different person in part 2. He's much more engaged. He's in much better humor than he was at Twickenham. It's as if he realized that he needs to be the leader. And John has this kind of wisecracking ringleader style about him. He's such a quick wit. And that seems to take the pressure off Paul and makes Paul a little bit more comfortable. George is now getting more respect from the other band members, and he seems much happier and more willing to make contributions, and he's being listened to. And then Ringo is kind of like the Buddha in the band. He's just sort of the patient guy who's waiting for the next take, never making waves, always there, in a kind of mature way, and he's just kind of like the solid rock that never really wavers. There is so we get over the tension over the band breaking up, at least for the time being, but there's still a lot of dramatic tension in part 2. But the nature of the suspense has shifted. Will the music come together in time for the live show? So the way Peter Jackson sets this up is you kind of go back to this calendar, and it's marking off the day by day. They have to get all this done by the end of January because there's other scheduling things that need to happen, like Ringo's going to go off and make the Magic Christian film and so forth. So they don't know what to do about the live show. They don't know if the songs are going to be ready. And then an idea is floated. What about playing on the roof of Apple, the Apple building itself? And this maybe will solve some problems. And that leads you to part 3, which tells the story of the Rooftop Concert when they step out onto that roof and play. And you get huge chunks of that set in the documentary, along with other shots at street level of bystanders. And you see these kind of Keystone Cops. They come in and they try to, they're getting lots of complaints, and they're threatening to break up the whole thing and arrest people. But the concert itself feels like a catharsis, an emotional catharsis. It's a happy ending to what started as a tragedy. And the band on the roof has delivered this raw yet celebratory rendition of their new material. And it really is a celebration, and you feel like they're almost liberated when they're playing live. So they thought they had lost it maybe, and they realized that they still had it. But this happy ending, of course, is laced with the bittersweet twinge of dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is where the characters don't quite know the state of things that we, the audience, know. We know the story that's to come. In a year, this band will be no more. This is their last live performance, and the memories are longer than the road that stretches out ahead. For my money, Get Back is absolutely indispensable viewing for any Beatles fan, for anyone who's ever been in a band and had to deal with band politics, band breakups, for anyone who's had to deal with any kind of small group dynamics at work, on the job. The human psychology that you see unfold is just fascinating. It's reality TV before they had a name for it. So Peter Jackson, he gave us just a wonderful, magnificent holiday present. Think of it. Me and my wife, we watched this whole thing. My wife's a huge Beatles fan. You got to hang out with some of the biggest icons in British pop music for 8 hours, for 3 days. That is really something special indeed. Thank you, Peter Jackson. Thank you very much. Now go and check out, I hope you have Disney Plus, maybe get a trial subscription to it and go and watch and let me know your thoughts about the Get Back documentary in the comments. If you like the video, please hit the like button, ring the bell, and subscribe. I really would appreciate it. Thanks for watching.